An old friend of mine described quitting porn as like running a marathon, in that the beginning starts very easily, it's bright, it's sunny, and then as time goes on, as he moves forward, he gets tired, he starts thinking, oh fuck, it's getting harder, I can't do it, and then of course he ends up relapsing, he ends up going to his bad degenerate habits, and hence he ends up staying right where he fucking started. But that is his belief, that is his story, and this isn't inherently true. Quitting isn't inherently exhausting. It's the story you tell yourself. If you keep saying, oh fuck, I can't do it, I can't deal with it, I am a fucking bitch, then of course this will be your story. And will this be your story? That is dependent on your actions, that is dependent on how far you're willing to go to get rid of these toxic, these self-limiting beliefs in your mind, preventing you from being your true self, preventing you from quitting pornography and getting rid of all the shackles on your brain. Hi, I'm Vansh. Why should you trust me? I was a fat kid who was bullied, who had no attention from girls, who had practically no friends, and I went from someone like that to someone who broke a 9-year porn addiction and have been free for 1.5 to gaining muscle, getting attraction from girls, changing my grades from 30-something% to 92% in just 1 year. And this can be you too, because I've helped multiple people do it via my dominant mind 3-step protocol method. This is a screenshot of one of my clients that I've helped who had a problem with pornography for many years, and he was doing his quitting during his college exams, during his A-level exams, and he performed well, so well that he got 9s and A stars in practically all of them. Quitting porn will improve not only your life, but it will improve your grades, your confidence, your everything, because it is one of the biggest shackles holding you back. Another example is Rehan Arora, who I helped quit pornography, and before that he was someone who had a problem with confidence, he was someone who had a problem with exams, and after I helped him quit pornography, he got serious about his sport, he got serious about his future, and went on to become a national level junior golfer. And these aren't just one-off cases, I have many examples like this guy right here. So if you want to skip the line, there's a link in description below about coaching, and you can just check that out. This is the payment link, blah blah blah, and I will be increasing the price later, so I would suggest you join right now because it's on pre-sale. That's all. So the point of willpower in its essence is it's increasing your pain limit, your supposed mental pain limit, and whenever you do that, you believe that it will make it easier to quit pornography, but it doesn't happen that way, because pain just continues to increase and increase, and you can't cope with it. You can't just ignore it, because that will only make it worse, right? So let's say this guy's willpower limit was about 40 points, right? And that's the max that he could go. So after 40 points is reached, he of course supposedly ended up relapsing, because he believed, ooga booga, I need to recharge my willpower. So he tried to do some things to increase his willpower, and that means that the limit increases from like 40 points to like 50. And that is good, right? It will help you improve your life, it will help you become a better person overall, but it isn't how you quit pornography, because the problem still isn't solved. You still end up relapsing, you still end up having to deal with pain, because you aren't addressing the reason why the pain exists in the first place, right? If we look at quitting pornography like doing a war, then this is the equivalent of just going gung-ho, going on no man's land, and just dying all over again. You need to have some level of strategy to it if you want to win the war, if you want to win the battle. Willpower inherently isn't the problem, it's that you're applying the wrong medication to the wrong injury. As I said, emotions, pains, problems, they don't go away. There will always be reasons, there will always be justifications, there will always be something which is telling you to watch pornography. And when you embrace that, when you do these things, you will of course end up going right back where you started, and you will end up being worse off. This is why I believe that using willpower is such a toxic way of trying to get pornography, because it makes you so fucking sad. It constantly makes you question yourself, and it's not a problem of you being unable to do it, but of the questions, the beliefs in your mind which is fucking keeping you trapped. And when you start to embrace that, when you start to see these beliefs, you will end up being better off than you actually started. And the first way this starts is by your beliefs about willpower inherently. So the idea that willpower is limited comes from 40-year-old research which later became popularized as ego depletion. However, replication attempts of multiple studies like this one with 2000 participants failed to find similar results, and same with meta-analysis studies, which are basically studies in which they look at hundreds of studies and they see the common results, the common findings on all of them, and they found no solid evidence after looking at hundreds of individual studies and seeing that there was nothing validating this belief, right? The reason that ego depletion became so popular, that people became so enamored with it, that your grandfather or your father or anyone else still talks about it, is because it justifies mediocrity. But newer studies show that it is inherently a placebo. What we believe about our willpower is exactly what shapes how we function. If we end up limiting our beliefs, then we of course end up limiting our actions. If we believe that our pain limit is at like 40 points or whatever, and when you reach that, of course you will end up nutting, you will end up gooning or whatnot, because that is your supposed willpower limit that you've assigned to yourself. Not inherent, not genetic, but you've assigned to yourself. When you look at a bunch of high performers like David Goggins or Kobe or Ray Dalio or Tim Ferriss, all of these claim that meditation, that mindfulness is the true foundation of real discipline. Because guess what? You can continue to think, after 100 steps, I will fail. And of course, you will end up failing when you're doing a marathon or whatever. Or you can just think, okay, I need to take one more step. I need to take one more step. Can I go on for one more second? Then I just do that. And then you ask yourself this question again and again and again and again. And that is true discipline. That is what gets true results. So when you understand that mindfulness is real willpower, you will of course end up performing better than you actually can. Hence, willpower is not something that you believe, but it's something that you choose. Weakness in this regard is a fucking choice, and you can get rid of it. One thing that you see a lot with modern culture, with consumerism, with advertisements, with propaganda in general, is that they promote not purpose, not authenticity, not strength, but instead they promote comfort. They promote relaxing. They say have a break, have a Kit Kat, or live, laugh and love, or just sit down and rejuvenate or whatever and recharge yourself by fucking watching a TV series or eating a junk food or whatever, when it is something that inherently hurts you. The thing is that society, our culture, our parents, our friends, everyone is obsessed with comfort, with consumerism, with passiveness, and this is not because they're evil, but because they're mediocre. Just like the example I gave previously, people end up loving ego depletion and whatnot because it helps them justify their mediocrity, because it helps them be mediocre, because it gives them reason to not fucking do anything. And if you follow these people, you will of course also end up mediocre. The thing is though, that because you've spent so much time with them, because you've spent so much time being accumulated and acclimated in this culture, you have these self-limiting beliefs which you need to get rid of before you can make progress. I told you before that if you end up believing that in a marathon or whatever, that you can only run for 100 or more steps and after that you will freaking fall, then of course you will end up falling. And this manifests even in your language, right? So the way that a lot of people talk about pornography is that it's something like a demon, it's something like a devil, right? But it is not. It is simply pixels. It is on your phone, there's a speaker and there's some sound coming out of it, but that's all there is to it. It is practically the same as a YouTube video, but there's tits. Ooga booga. Wow. The point is that pornography at the end of the day is just something on your phone. You can turn off the phone, you can just leave it somewhere else, and you can simply forget about it. So why do we not do it? Because we have self-limiting beliefs. If you believe that there's a monster in the closet, there will of course be a fucking monster in the closet. But if you actually end up being mindful, which in general will be beneficial to you, then you have the ability to perceive, then you have the ability to see things objectively. And when you do that, you see that, okay, I turned on the light, there's no damn monster in the closet, it's just a teddy bear that my sister has or some crap. Why the hell was I so scared of it? So when you do that, when you actually end up questioning these beliefs inside your brain, is when you will find it way easier to quit pornography, because it's not a demon that you're romanticizing a fight against. It simply is some neural pathways that you can simply diminish. It simply is some pixels on a screen which you can easily fucking turn off and throw away. So the same applies to anything else. The same applies to any other addiction. Alcohol isn't some fucking ambrosia. It's the emotional beliefs that people have with it which makes them do it. It's not like there's a fucking demon inside of the bottle. It simply is rotten carbohydrates. It's fucking worst tasting Gatorade or whatever. Are you still interested in it? Exactly. So when you start breaking down your language, when you start seeing your language and you see, okay, I have some fucking biases here, maybe I need to get rid of that, then you will end up performing better, and you will end up seeing that, I was maybe telling myself some lies which I have gotten rid of, and hence I can see things clearly. And now my desire for pornography, which was based on these romanticism, these self-limiting beliefs, that's fucking gone. I suddenly don't feel like using it anymore. Even if it was a demon, remember that the biggest thing that demons feed on is ignorance, is impulse. So when you start to see that, when you start to control your first impulse and you see, okay, I will just see this urge, I will just see this belief that I have, I will just see this emotion and I will not interact with it, I will let it come and let it go, then you won't be affected that much by it, and hence you can easily remove it and it dies. One thing that you need to understand is that your brain will lie. You will always have these things telling in your brain that, oh my god, you did a good job, when you haven't done practically anything, and that it will tell you that you've earned it, that you should have some rest, when again, this is something that we choose. This is not based on actual fucking science. So when we actually look at our beliefs, when we actually question them, when we actually interact with them, we find out that, okay, I didn't earn it. Okay, I don't need to earn anything because willpower is unlimited, because I haven't a desire for it. Or maybe something else like, oh, I miss it so much, just one more time. One more time till what? Till I fucking nut. I can easily do that in my sleep. I can easily do that without it. Don't need pornography for it. I can just do masturbation without it, or I can go approach women or whatever. So why the hell would I use pornography? When you start questioning these beliefs, when you start breaking them down, it will become far, far easier. The first reasonings that the brain will try to justify are the supposed logical reasonings, right? It will try to dress them as logic. But when you actually question them, you will find that all of them are untrue. It will quite literally take like 5 minutes of research per whatever impulse or whatever reasonings it gives. And you will find that practically all of them are untrue, are biased, are false. So let's look at something like concentration. The thing about pornography is that it quite literally causes brain damage to an extent to your brain, right? So do you think brain damage is very good for your concentration? No. What pornography ends up doing is that it takes your concentration and it increases it for a little while, but it ends up leaving you worse off than you actually started. So let's say you started at 100 and you, after being reminded of something like work, like stress or whatever, about homework and whatnot, you think that, okay, damn, I'm stressed about this, I don't want to do it, blah, 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 it will hurt so much. And because you've painted such an image, because you've thought that it will hurt so much, then actually when you start doing the homework or whatever, you are overwhelmed by it and it actually ends up hurting. So pornography ends up worsening your concentration. You take negative 20 mental damage points or whatever, and hence, of course, now you need to cope with it, right? Because that's what your beliefs about willpower were. So you end up going at 130 after using pornography or whatever. And when you return, you don't return to 100, you return to 90. So your baseline level of being has went from 100 to 90. And it will continue to get worse until you have these cycles of up and down, up and down, up and down, until your baseline level of being is so fucking bad that it ends up at 50 or whatever, and you just hate your fucking life. Same applies to education. If you look at porn directors or porn stars, they will tell you that there's a lot of fakeness, like the sounds that they make or the positions that they use so that they can look better in front of the camera or whatever. And not to mention that many people in the pornography industry end up using a lot of drugs because it can be, for many, a very traumatic experience. So pornography isn't very good to fucking learn about it. I would much rather suggest a book about it, or asking ChatGPT about how to put on a condom or whatever so you don't get a girl pregnant, or actually start fucking approaching chicks, bro. That's what you need to do. Anyways, the same applies to practically all of the logical self-limiting beliefs that it will give you. But before we get any further, if you actually want improvement and you don't just want to watch YouTube videos, but let's say you want to get my coaching or my in-depth 4 to 5 hour video course, then you can join the Dominant Mind community right here. There's the payment link, yeah. and there's the multiple testimonials that we have. There's all of the things that you will get in it, and right now the price is just $49 because I will be increasing it later as it's on pre-sale. So if you join right now, you will get lifetime access, and I think it's a pretty good, because not only will I be making courses on how to quit pornography, but also about how to cure pornography induced erectile dysfunction, how to actually be good at bed for your first time, how to get confidence, etc., or how to do your first pull-up, how to get abs and whatnot. So again, if you're interested in that, there's the link in the description below. The price will only increase, and I will probably make it into a monthly subscription for other people later, but for you it will be lifetime always. So if you're interested in that. Anyways, another very big self-limiting belief that you may have is about stress. I talked to you about mental points, about having this limit with willpower, right? But that again only exists because you believe in it and on your interpretation on the words that you use, because wording makes a whole lot of difference, right? So let's say there's this guy and he's planning to go on stage right after the other guy, and he has like 5 minutes, right? And all of a sudden he starts realizing that his pupil is dilating, right? His heart is beating very, very fast. His hand is becoming shaky. His leg is tapping very fast, and his breathing is unstable, right? So he can interpret that in two ways. The first is that, oh fuck, I'm going to fail. And he will think something like that I am going to fail because my eyes are dilating, because I am feeling stressed, and my heart is beating because I'm not ready for this, because I feel that I am going to run away, or my leg is shaking because I am not prepared and my nerves are on action. My hand is shaking because I am not prepared, blah, blah, blah. And the other guy can look at the same thing and he will think, my pupils dilate so I can get more light into them and I can see the audience better, right? And he believes something else, like my heart is beating faster so that my hands and my body and my brain can get oxygen better and faster so that I can perform better. My breathing is unsteady so I can get more oxygen. My leg is shaking, my hand is shaky because I am overflowing with excitement. I am going to fucking dominate. These people had the same exact bodily response, but one guy failed because of the inner monologue he was telling himself, and the other guy succeeded because of it. So the way you talk to yourself, the way you tell yourself stuff, the way you look at things actually matters, because language and wording is the only way that we can think. God damn, my voice hurts. Anyways, so the last thing I leave you with is that there's 3 parts of our brain, right? There's the human or the logical brain, which has a history of about a few tens of thousands of years old. There's the mammalian brain, which has a history of, let's say, a few 100,000 years old. And then there's the reptilian brain, which has the history of millions of years old, right? So which one are you exactly? Which one of these brain sides is yourself, is the ego? This is a trick question. You are not the brain exactly. You are the consciousness. You are not the person in the video game. You are not the video game character, but instead you're this guy. You're the one playing the video game. You're the one with the controller in hand. And when you start realizing that, it will become far easier to not just quit pornography, but get control of your life in general. So I'll have you do a meditation exercise that will last 10 seconds only. I want you to just close your eyes and just think, what will my next thought be? Alright, so you probably got distracted by some thoughts, right? You may have thought that, oh crap, I need to do this thing before I forget about it, or something else, like you started counting perhaps, or you got reminded of something else entirely. The point is that thoughts are not you. Thoughts are simply that the brain does. Much like your heart beats, much like your stomach digests, the brain thinks, right? And that's its job. And you don't need to identify with the thoughts aren't you. The brain can say anything and you just need to understand, okay, that was a brain fart or whatever. I don't need to identify with that. The point is that when you start realizing that you are not any of these parts of the brain, but instead the consciousness, you can understand that all of these ones have self-limiting beliefs about, let's say, pornography, and hence they end up convincing you, or they end up putting pressure on you to do it or to justify it, right? So when you get rid of their justifications, when you tell them that, okay, bro, there's a pros and cons tables, and you believe that there's like 15 advantages and let's say 5 disadvantages, right? But just like right now, much like I have had with you, if I end up telling you that no, you don't have low willpower, you have a misinterpretation of willpower, no, you don't have high stress, you have a misinterpretation of stress, you have a misinterpretation of wording, then all of a sudden I've gotten rid of 2 very big self-limiting beliefs that you've had, and I've changed the pros to 13 from 15, and I've changed the cons from like 5 to 7. So if you continue to do that, if you just continue to get rid of the pros sheet, then you will have no reason to get rid of pornography. And when you actually start confronting them, when you start seeing these beliefs, you will realize that there's some beliefs you have about your reptilian brain, about impulses. There's some beliefs you have about your emotions. There's some self-limiting beliefs that you have about your logical brain. And when you start confronting them, it will become very, very easy to get pornography, because much like crack cocaine, you won't have any reason to use it. You won't have any justification for it, and you won't have a desire to be associated with it, right? Of course, we don't have time in the video, so I can't cover all of them. But if you want that, there will be a course linked in the description below. It's on pre-sale right now, blah, 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 if you're interested in that. But other than that, what you need to do is identify the self-limiting beliefs which are holding you back. So this could be logical self-limiting beliefs like this one. Like, I know someone who believes that having an urge means that you will PMO. Like, this is the same as the 100-step thing, where you're in a marathon, you think, okay, after 100 steps, I'm going to fail. So of course you end up failing. Urges simply are, right? The interpretation that you have of the urge, of the bodily state of urge, is what actually makes you nut, is what actually makes you go towards pornography. So when you end up seeing that, when you end up just noticing the urge and what it feels like, for example, for you, it could come as a slight headache. It could come as a slight tightness in your throat or a tightness in your chest or whatever. And when you start confronting that, when you start just seeing it, urges become very, very easy to handle, because urges then simply are. They aren't a result of pornography, they aren't a result of anything else, but they simply are a bodily state which comes and goes, much like hunger pangs, much like your desire to work, much like motivation or whatever. Another thing is your reptilian or impulse brain. So if you want to get control over yourself, you first need to have the ability to see. You cannot see if you're constantly running away. You need to slow down, and you need to actually judge the thought. You need to judge the stress. You need to see, okay, am I actually feeling that? You need to see, am I actually in control here? Am I actually in a very big survival situation or whatever? The point is that you need to identify less with your thoughts, with your immediate thoughts or impulses, and you need to start catching yourself thinking whatever and just remedying that. So if you find yourself thinking, I'm a piece of shit, fucking catch that and just ask it why. Why am I a piece of shit? Why are you saying that? Why do you say that? Blah, blah, blah. And when you do that, it will become far, far easier to just approach it with an empty mind, to just approach it with an open mind, and hence you will find it way, way easier to quit, because all of these beliefs, like I've said, are irrational. And when you actually start questioning them, they will become way, way easier to quit, because you are not being hit by ignorance, you are not being mocked by it. Now the hardest one is the emotional or the mammalian brain, which is the one that a lot of people have struggles with, but again, it's not impossible. I have quitted it, a lot of my clients have quitted it, multiple people have done so, right? So EBC is where it all starts. Emotion-based coping, the way that you're trying to run away from your stress, you're trying to drown it by consumerism, by passivity, by mediocrity, is the key problem. Everything that you do is emotionally motivated. There is no logical reason for it. You first have an emotional reason, and then you justify it with logic, right? And that is why it's pretty easy to get rid of impulse or logical self-limiting beliefs, because they are surface level, right? But compared to something like that, emotions always have a why, right? So let's take the example of showering. Why do you shower? You'll say something like, it keeps me clean, or it makes me smell good, right? The point is that when you answer these things, you're revealing something about your emotional processing, right? You say that it keeps you clean, but why does that matter? Because people will not judge you about it, because people will say that, okay, he's a hygienic person, he's not a fucking garbage dumpster guy, he's not someone who doesn't take care of himself. Or it could be about health. You do not want to catch diseases. You do not want to be stinky. You do not want to have certain diseases inside of you and whatnot, right? Because you're not showering or something. The point is that when you're answering these, You're saying, I do not want to be socially judged because that feels bad, and I do not want pain from sickness because that feels bad. You are either trying to get something emotionally whenever you do anything, or you're trying to avoid a negative outcome. That is all there is to it. So there's always an emotionally motivated why in why you use pornography, and hence you need to discover that, and you need to break that down, and you need to ask your brain, bro, is this actually helping us? Oh damn, it's not. Okay, let's use another why. Let's have another why which is actually helping us, like getting purpose, like trying to retire your parents, like trying to get girls because we haven't had them for many years, like trying to go to the gym and actually fixing a physique and whatnot. And when you start doing that, when you start realizing that, okay, these are all of the problems that we have been repressing, that we have been trying to make them go away with numbing, with sedation, etc., but they haven't gone away, they've only gotten worse, then the only way that we can solve them is via solving for long-term gain, by solving for solutions, doing solution-based coping rather than doing anything else like emotion-based coping with junk food, pornography, anything else. And this, when you start doing it, will increase your actual ability to take pain, will increase your willpower, will better the way that you see yourself, will better your self-improvement, will better your consistency in practically anything, better your confidence, better your self-esteem, etc. And when you start doing these things, it will become far, far easier to get pornography, and not just that, but to get your life in fucking order like I started to do. And that's all there is to the video. Cheers.